Hey everybody, welcome back to Wicked Good Sports for the first time in a while. Yeah, so if you're only listening on the podcast services, you probably can't see, but if you're on YouTube, you see it's a little bit of a different setup in my interview setup where I talk to all our contributors, Chad, Chris, Jack, about their various sports. Not using my nice camera, just using my webcam. It's 1080, but it's not the same. We all know that. But that's not really what you're all here for. Hear me discuss why there hasn't been episodes lately, or why there's only been standalone episodes. You're here for sports, and boy, do we have a jam-packed episode. We're going to be talking about retirements, Alex Smith and Julian Edelman. Then we got the power play with Chris Ubinsky. He's going to talk all about the Bruins, what's been going on, how that trade is playing out. Tuca is back. Very exciting. And then to end the show, we got Jack talking a little bit of basketball, focusing mostly on the Celtics in our segment At the Buzzer. You're not going to want to miss it, and it all starts right now. So to start the show off, I wanted to talk a little bit about Alex Smith retiring. It's a time in the NFL offseason where things are just in flux. The draft is coming. Everyone's focused on, the new players. People are retiring. We've had a couple. We'll talk about Julian Edelman later in the show. This one, I want to talk a little bit about Alex Smith because he's truly a unique player. He experienced pretty much everything you can short of winning a Super Bowl. Of course, he was the first overall pick in 2005. He went ahead of Aaron Rodgers, so that kind of followed him his whole career. But Aaron Rodgers probably could not have done any better job than Alex Smith did in his time in San Francisco. Of course, he got an injury early in his career. That definitely changed his approach to the game. Once Jim Harbaugh came, he played a lot better. He led the 49ers to an NFC championship game. He's a bouncing punt, hitting a player in the knee away from potentially leading them to the Super Bowl. He gets benched in favor of Colin Kaepernick, which, at the time I think was, if not a no-brainer, at least it made sense. Colin Kaepernick was truly sensational in those early years in San Francisco before Harbaugh left for Michigan and before the team started retiring and fell apart. Again, before he had to be coached by Jim Tom Sula. So he left for, the new hotshot young gun, and he went to Kansas City, and under Andy Reid, he had some great years, consistently leading the Chiefs to the playoffs, definitely becoming a extremely important part of that organization. But much like San Francisco, his time wouldn't last. He would be replaced by Patrick Mahomes, which I think it's safe to say at this point that was the right choice. Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen in my entire life. Barring any disastrous injury, he will probably go down as one of the all-time greats. But it still was unfortunate for Alex Smith, and doubly so when Patrick Mahomes was able to win playoff games right away, took Tom Brady to the wire in the 2018 NFC Championship game, and then he led the Chiefs to the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl in 2019, led the Chiefs to the Super Bowl again in 2020 to lose to the Bucs. That had to be tough for Alex Smith as he was sent to Washington, where he had he had the Washington football team, formerly known as, playing very well, first place in the NFC East before J.J. Watt just destroyed his leg. If someone is a Washington fan and watches this video, can you tell me, is FedEx Field's turf just horrible? Because all I can think of when I think of FedEx Field is Robert Griffin III's knee exploding and then Alex Smith's leg getting caught in that turf and his bone sticking out of his leg, requiring many surgeries. And I think at that point, most people would have been done, and nobody would have blamed Alex Smith for being done. I mean, one, the mental toll of having an injury like that has to just be huge. Say nothing of the infection that almost killed him afterwards. And then the rehabbing to get back into the NFL, even, just to go out there and practice was amazing in a very unique and great story. But when he came back, he played very well. He, I believe, went 5-1 as a starter. A big part of why the football team made the playoffs this year. They didn't give him the start in the playoffs, which to me was extremely disappointing. But he does have that great highlight of the season of being the first, quarterback leading a team to beat the Steelers at the time on a very fun Monday or perhaps Sunday night football game. To stop the clock, he ran off with the football. It was just great to see him back. But I would be lying if I did not wince every single time he took a hit. And Ron Rivera has even come out in an interview and said that he would be kept up at night at the prospect of Alex Smith getting hurt again and him being blamed for it. And obviously I don't think many people would have blamed Ron Rivera had that happen. I mean, you can only, stop a player from wanting to come back so much, but it makes sense as why Taylor Heineke, who played incredibly well in that playoff game against the Buccaneers, got the start. But it had to be incredibly disappointing for Alex Smith to not have the opportunity to play in the playoffs, especially given the history of him, and especially losing to Tom Brady when in his time in Kansas City. They had some great battles in the regular and postseason that, especially in the postseason, I think entirely went to Tom Brady. So it could have been, a nice last game, but it wasn't to be. He did win comeback player of the year, which I don't think anyone would argue that he certainly deserved. So he finished his career with 3 Pro Bowls, a record of 99 and 67 and 1. He threw for 35,000 yards, 199 touchdowns to 109 interceptions. And I mean, let's be honest, he came out with a winning record in San Francisco, but if you watched the start of his career, you wouldn't have thought that was possible. He finished 50-26 for Kansas City and finished 11-5 in the games that he played for Washington. So I think, Alex Smith, he was certainly not a bust. He's not better than Aaron Rodgers. I do think that his shoulder injury early in his career really altered what he could do with the football, which is, of course, very disappointing. But all things considered, in one of the more interesting careers, given everything that happened, Alex Smith was a great player. I would say more than a game manager. Someone you could root for very easily. He seems like a great guy, and especially after everything he went through between being shipped out of San Francisco, being, shipped out of Kansas City, having a horrific injury, and then coming back. Hats off to you, Alex. I hope you enjoy whatever is next. And, it is sad because I did think there was a good chance that he perhaps is going to be reunited with his former coach down in Jacksonville, but it was not to be. So I'm sure if he wants to, he can get an analyst job, anything like that. Maybe he's just over it, though. Maybe he just wants to retire. Only time will tell. Everybody, welcome back to Wicked Good Sports. I'm Brian, and I'm joined by my friend Chad to talk all about Julian Edelman. Chad, how you doing? I mean, it's an emotional time, I would imagine.
It is a rough day, rough past week here to be a Patriots fan. The man, the myth, the legend, Julian Edelman. He was, to me, he's always been one of my favorites. It was always Brady, Edelman, Gronk. Gronk going was sad, and then Brady was the biggest hit. But with Edelman, it just feels like he was the last of that Patriots team that we all know and love. The last missing piece. I mean, there's others Devin McCourty, James White, but Edelman was the hometown guy. But it's sad to see him go. It feels like we're on to a whole new Patriots team now.
Yeah, I was about to say it truly feels like an end of an era. Like,
Yeah.
Brady leaving was, of course, like the big end of an era, but like,
Right.
yeah, it's weird. It's like I don't know how to compare it. Like when a show goes on for a long time and like all the actors have left, except there's like the one person who hangs on, and then now he's gone too. It's like,
and they kill him
it's
off.
weird, right? So I mean, let's break it down right now. His career stats: he has in his career 620 receptions, 6,822 yards, 36 touchdowns, and of course he's added. I gotta find it. Another. Is that right? Another 30 touchdowns? No, that cannot be right. This website is incorrect. But he was a very prolific punt returner in his time. There's that clip that was going around on Twitter when he retired where Wes Welker like missed a game, and Julian Edelman returned like a punt for a touchdown, and Bill Belichick was like giving Wes Welker a ton of shit, like he was the guy before Lou Gehrig, and Wes Welker like obviously didn't know like what he was hinting at, but like I mean it came to fruition, right? Like he took right over, and I guess in some ways he was kind of better than Welker in that role. What do you think from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean Welker, like it's hard to say who's the better slot receiver, but Welker kind of invented that role here,
right,
in New England, and carried on to the Broncos after.
For a little bit until he got concussed out of the league.
Yeah, but I feel like Edelman really like took over the role and then almost like perfected it. Like there's no other slot receiver I would want on my team than Edelman. Maybe I'm biased, but I mean he's definitely in the conversation if you're thinking best like position player,
right?
Best role player.
Yeah, and I'm not a Patriots fan, so I think I can say without any bias, like he was definitely the kind of guy who's like, it's third down, they need to get a first down. I mean, look no further than when they beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago. On that last drive to win in overtime, I think he had 3 third down receptions for first downs.
Something
like
crazy.
How do you let Tom Brady's gonna throw to Julian Edelman on third down? How do you let it happen? And you just would consistently be open, and it's going to be hard for them to replace. I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on who they have and who could potentially step up in this role?
I mean, with these 2 new tight ends here, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, I think they can kind of make up for that, middle of the field pass catcher.
Right.
But it's hard to fill a slot receiver hole, especially when they don't have really great weapons on the outside. I mean, I think we just signed, I forget who the wide receiver was. Was it Nelson Aguilar?
Yep. Signed Nelson Aguilar.
So, but he's not like a slot guy. He's like down the field, but at least to my knowledge. But, this feels like a totally new Patriots offense, at least. I mean, defense, we still have a lot of those key players. But with Edelman gone, to me, it felt like the final, blow out the candle on the old Pats that we know.
Yeah, and I guess, like, probably no better time than, like, what are your, like, as a big Edelman fan, as a big Patriots fan, what are the moments that stand out to you from, like, Edelman in his career here?
To me, I mean, you got to think of the catch against
the catch, yeah.
Oh, my God. I love watching the video of that, and Edelman's just like, I got it, I swear to God. he's even like, dude, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And then just all the times of Edelman mic'd up on the bench yelling at Tom because he's too old. It's just like he's like such a cult hero around here, like everyone loves him around New England. We can talk about is he Hall of Fame or not. I definitely have my thoughts on that. I think it's pretty much everyone's coming to consensus, but he's definitely a Hall of Fame Patriot. He's on the all-time Patriot team, no problem, in my opinion.
Probably jersey retired, probably like in the Ring of Honor.
Maybe, maybe.
Because I think he's just such an important part, especially of this like second wave of the second dynasty. Because the Patriots, of course, have 6 Super Bowls in their history, and like it's kind of like 2 different dynasties with Brady and Belichick at the head of each one of their second dynasty. He's like the third behind Gronk and Brady, most important part of it. And like you said, I mean, that catch against the Falcons is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I still to this day don't know how he caught that, or like sometimes in sports it's just like, oh, it was just meant to be, like he's just meant to catch that. They were just meant to come back and rip the hearts out of Falcons fans.
Greatest game of all time, at least for me. Maybe for New England is, maybe not for people down there in Atlanta, but
yeah, I would imagine. I do enjoy on Reddit, especially like the 28-3 memes. Anytime,
I love it.
Anytime people can give it to Falcons fans, like at this point, I don't even know. Like they probably wake up in cold sweats, like thinking about that.
I mean, they're already miserable enough.
Yeah, I mean, just an absolutely brutal thing. And I guess, I think what's understated too is, they do have a lot of defensive veterans and a lot of leadership on that side of the ball, especially with Kyle Van Noy returning to Miami, from Miami to New England, which I'm sad about, but it is what it is. As a Dolphins fan,
I'll take him.
But on offense, this is what his 10th year, 11th year, in the 12th. So he's been in the system. He's been around. He's a big veteran presence in that, and it's always sad to see someone like that go out because it's just like their body fails them. I mean, he's 34. He's no spring chicken in this in the NFL world. He's super young in regular life, but
I mean, he is like a football player, not just like a wide receiver. Like, he can throw. He was a punt returner. He was out there making tackles. And he was getting the biggest hits I've seen in football. All these crossing routes, you're getting taken a hit from a lineman. And Edelman's what's he, 5'11", 5'10", maybe 200 something. He's not a big guy, and he's taking these hits, and you look at it holy shit, he's even gonna get up, and he springs right up and then plays in another down, gets hit again. He took a beating. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did. You can't deny the guy. He's one of the toughest people. I mean, we've heard all these ex-football players, or current football players even, say he's one of the toughest guys I've ever played against. He's insane.
He has to be to play that position, to be that good at it. As you said, he retires with a perfect passer rating. He's 6 for 6, 128 yards with a 1 touchdown, 158.3. So that's fun. I think one of the big moments that stand out to me. We talked about the catch against Baltimore in the playoffs, that touchdown to Amendola. That was pretty insane, and really got the Pats back into that, and they would go on to win that game, and honestly kind of ended that era of the Ravens. The Ravens and Patriots had a great rivalry for years in the playoffs, but after that, I don't think they made the playoffs again until Lamar Jackson came along. So that to me always stands out as the dagger to the hearts of the Ravens, to get them off, the Patriots back, if you will.
Yeah, but I mean, the elephant in the room is Julian Edelman a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, so it's tough. There are so many receivers who have, it's a huge log jam, right? We have players like Reggie Wayne, who's I think a Hall of Famer, and he will get into the Hall of Fame. He's not in there now. There's other players like Torrey Holt, who I think very much deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and somehow he hasn't, which is surprising to me, especially being a part of the Greatest Show on Turf back in the early 2000s, and being it's not like he was killing it in obscurity, like someone like Jimmy Smith, who did kill it in obscurity. He won a couple of Super Bowls early with the Cowboys early in his career when he wasn't used much, but then he really made it in Jacksonville. And then I also think more tangential players like Derek Mason was always a great, player, over 10,000 yards in his career. he never won a Super Bowl, so that hurts. But I think it really comes down to what do the playoff stats mean for Hall of Famers, right?
Yep.
You know, he was great in the playoffs. He has a Super Bowl MVP. You know, like, that's pretty insane. Obviously, there's only been so many people to ever win Super Bowl MVP. So it's kind of hard. But I think it's a slam dunk that he's a Patriots Hall of Famer. But what do you think about him being in the Hall of Fame?
I think he's in the Hall of Very Good. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Because and I hate that that's like the first question everyone asks the second he retires. It's like, come on, give him a minute.
Can't celebrate his career.
Yeah, come on. Like, I mean, he's definitely in the conversation for like some of the best slot receivers, if not the best. He's, like you said, lockdown Hall of Fame for Patriots. But for the entire NFL, it's hard to say. I mean, I would bet on the no, because we've seen so many comparisons. Like, I even saw one of Jordy Nelson, where Jordy had, I think, was just shy of 9,000 yards. He had 72 touchdowns, so double Edelman's amount almost. Yeah. And I don't know exactly how many receptions, but Jordy Nelson's not in the Hall of Fame. So it's
Jordy Nelson, when you say it right now, that's not someone who, to me, jumps out as oh, that's a Hall of Famer. You know,
no,
he was awesome. Don't get me wrong, he was great, but not a Hall of Famer. He's not Terrell Owens. You know, he's not. Yeah. Even Calvin Johnson, who doesn't have the bulk stats, but he's in the Hall of Fame because when he was in the league, he was so dominant, and he had nearly a 2,000-yard receiving year. It's so ridiculous. So it's so hard. And like I said, there's a logjam. There's so many wide receivers already that should get in the Hall of Fame who aren't in the Hall of Fame. So it's it would be hard for me to see Julian Edelman get in when people like Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne and even Jimmy Smith aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. So we'll see.
It would be purely because of his postseason stats. I mean, he's got 1,100 some odd yards just in postseason, but he's also been to every single postseason that throughout his career. I think they made every single postseason except for one, and it was Brady's last year as a Patriot. So
it's almost the exact inverse of someone like Brandon Marshall, who was on just shit teams his entire career and never made the playoffs, but he was always one of the top receivers in the league. But same thing, I like Brandon Marshall a lot. He's a fellow podcaster like we are, but on the I Am Athlete podcast. But hi Ren, if you're watching. But he's the same thing as Jordan Nelson. When I think about Brandon Marshall, he's not someone who jumps off that's a Hall of Fame player, even though his stats are up there. It's just it's so hard. I mean, look no further than fucking Zach Thomas. That dude was top tier his entire career, and he's not in the Hall of Fame, and I don't know if he's gonna get in the Hall of Fame anytime soon. Because he was on the Dolphins almost his whole career. So
exactly. I think he's clutch. Edelman will go down as one of the most clutch players. He shows up in those big moments. When you need him, he's gonna make the play. But I just think the stats aren't there. I was looking at his year by year log, and there's only a handful of seasons where he played all 16 games. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's postseason games that we're not counting there, but so he's been banged up, and maybe that's in part of the reason why the stats aren't there. But you also got to think he was purely a slot receiver, over the middle routes, 7 to 10 yards, he's not going deep every play. We're getting 50-yard toss-ups, but so he's not going to have as many yards. Because he played his role. He's in the Hall of Fame for slot receivers. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, right. There's a separate part of it, but I mean, it does him a disservice. I feel to be oh, he's not a Hall of Famer, because I mean, most people who play football aren't Hall of Famers, and most people who play football don't have as good a career as Julian Edelman. So exactly. I think it should be remembered as a great player in his era and an important player for Patriots history.
100%. One of the handful of names that come up when I think like who are the most important people to the Patriots dynasty. Belichick, Brady, Gronk, Edelman, and then some key defensive players.
Right. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to add about him? I mean, we could gush over him, I think, a lot, but I think we already did a lot, right? Like, you know.
He will be missed, that's for sure, and I'm excited to see, what he does in his career next. He's a pretty charismatic and funny guy, so.
Yeah, no, I think he has if he wants it, he has a career in radio, in, some type of media, like, from when I've heard him on various podcasts like Barstool and stuff, he's always struck me as a very fun and funny guy. So, he's only 34. He's old in football terms, but he's young in terms of his life. So, if he wants to do something, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities for him.
Just make Burger Time an actual show.
Right, yeah, exactly. Oh, man. All right, Chad, where can they find you online?
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at ChadleyJP and on Twitter at ChadPerry25.
This is a segment we like to call Power Play, and we're joined by Chris Uminski, who is our resident hockey expert. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk a little bit hockey, especially because the Bruins are doing quite well. They're 7-2-1 in the last 10 and have won 5 straight, and I just want to get a little bit more insight on, is that just purely numbers, or are they really looking as good as that record would indicate?
Well, they coming out of the trade deadline and those big moves that they've made, it has been a very nice week to be a Bruins fan. They came off after the break. They faced a couple of good teams with the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders, and played very well against them. I'm surprised they did as well as they did, especially against the Capitals. Got a couple. Swayman got his first shutout. One of our rookie goalies. And they just put It has been great to be a Bruins fan lately. The second line is looking really good with the addition of Taylor Hall. The first line, Brad Marchand, has been playing like an absolute beast the last few games. The power play is looking really good, looking very productive when we got a man advantage. And it seems like things are finally starting to come together a little bit for this team.
Yeah, it certainly does, and obviously a big part of that, like you alluded to, was the trade from last week. How is that working out for the Bruins?
I am a Taylor Hall fan. I might go and buy myself a jersey. Taylor Hall is a great fit for this. Is a great fit for this team. I talked last week about how the first line, the top line, has been looking really good all season, but sort of like the second, third, and fourth lines have been lackluster. Well, Taylor Hall, they put him. Coach Cassidy stuck him on the second line with David Krejci, and Krejci and Hall have been playing very well together. They've been productive. Taylor Hall's already putting up points for the Bruins, and he's indicated that he wants to stay. He's playing like he wants to get that contract extension with the Bruins.
Hey, and from the sounds of it, that would be a pretty good thing, at least 1 week into this new era, if you will. I guess it's funny because I'm not a hockey expert. That's why I have you on. I'm here to kind of be the voice of the fans who are like casually into it. But I did watch a YouTuber who is like a fan of. He was on the Sabres, correct? And she was very sad. She was very sad at the trade, very like almost catatonic.
It's not
like I'm not watching.
Fun time to be a Sabres fan.
No, definitely not. So for me, I was like, all right, so this is good, and obviously that's playing out in real time. All right, I mean, we got to talk about it. We were a little hard on Tuukka Rask at the end of the last episode. We kind of, I wouldn't say made fun, but, weren't too high on his prospects moving forward with the Bruins. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So I guess we got to eat crow a little bit here. How's Tuukka playing since he's been back?
Well, Tuukka Rask came back from they never actually told us what was wrong with him. It was just like upper body injury, and sort of left it at that. But he's come back. His first few games back, he's been He's been that elite goalie that I alluded to last week, one of the top players in the NHL. His head seems like he's in the right place. See, every now and then, that's the thing with Tuukka Rask. I said last week he's kind of a head case, and this kind of proves that a little bit. He comes back from these long breaks, and he plays like he makes it look easy.
Right.
And I mean, he put up a couple of great shutouts. Really took it to that Sabres team last night. Although that isn't saying much. The Sabres are the worst team in the league.
Hey, it is what it is. You can only play who's on your schedule.
He's playing like an NHL goalie.
Like a particularly good one. All right, so I guess what can we expect for like the direction of the Bruins? Do you think they're gonna continue to climb up the Eastern Conference standings? And after like a week of seeing Tuukka back, we got our new additions. How do you feel the team is going to, I guess, look for the rest of the season and heading into the playoffs, which is of course a bit away, but
I think it's trending well so far. If we can keep the momentum and keep this trajectory, there we will end up being probably second or third in the division if we don't get up to that top spot. We do have an advantage in the standings because we have 3 games in hand on the Washington Capitals, who are in first place. And we're only a few points behind the first, second, and third. The Islanders, Capitals, and Penguins. We're only a few points behind them. If they lose and we win, then that is going to put us in a very good position going into the playoffs and hopefully get some good seeding based on that.
Right. You mentioned the Capitals. There was some drama, some controversy surrounding this. You're telling me before the show. Can you elaborate on what the drama between the Capitals and Bruins was and where you fall on this drama?
So earlier in the week, the Bruins played the Capitals. We won. It was a great game. But they have a player. His name is Tom Wilson. He does not have a great reputation throughout the league. He plays kind of dirty. He put on a hit. I don't even remember who the hit was on at this point. The player ended up being fine. But the hit looked very dirty on the ice, and the refs didn't call it. And even though the player got taken off the ice, and had to sit out for a while. And it was a dirty hit. And then the NHL, their player safety commission, whatever you want to call it, decided that they weren't gonna even look at the hit, decide if there was going to be any sort of discipline for Tom Wilson. And there was an issue with Tom Wilson in the last series with the Capitals too. He had some pretty dirty hits. The Capitals haven't been playing clean this season, I don't think.
Yeah.
Tom Wilson sort of leading that charge. I'm not a fan of Tom Wilson. But if he was on my team, I would like him probably.
Right. It's I
do think he should have been disciplined for the hit. But it is what it is. It didn't affect the outcome of the game. It didn't affect the Bruins going forward. We haven't lost anybody long term because of it. But maybe I think he should have gotten a game suspension. Right. Sit him down for a game, or at least a fine, something. The NHL likes to say that they take player safety seriously, but sometimes with their officiating, they're not getting the calls on the ice, and when you don't get the call on the ice, it's less incentive for the NHL to actually look at the play.
Right, of course. Yeah,
find what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the storyline to follow going forward, if the Capitals and Bruins are going to potentially be battling it out for, the 1, 2, 3 seed, whatever, in the Eastern Conference, we'll keep an eye on that. I guess I would say it's the official take, but we don't like Tom Wilson here. Unless he's on the Bruins, then we would like him, as Chris said.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we have Brad Marchand, and Brad Marchand he's not a popular player among other fan bases either, but I tell them all the time, if Brad Marchand was on your team, he'd be your favorite.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, with hockey, it's such a physical and tough game. You always root for those players when they are on your team. So, Chris, is there anything else you want to add before we get on out of here on this segment?
I think that's done it for now. It was a pretty slow news week for the Bruins. Just they're winning. Tuukka Rask is looking good. Taylor Hall is a great fit. And I just hope that continues. I'd like to see that go forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, Chris, where can they find you online if they want to give you a follow?
Find me. I'm on Twitter, Chris_Uminski. I tweet Bruins news, some other politics, all things like that. I'm pretty active on Twitter. If you're into memes, I'm on Facebook.
All
Chris
right,
Uminski.
awesome.
All right.
So you can find Chris there. You can find me at the fake BMR. It's BMARR. It's down there. You can follow the channel on Twitter at WGEverything, on Instagram, Wicked Get Everything, on Twitch at twitch.tv/Wicked Get Everything, where you can also hear Chris's voice when Ben streams Among Us. Chris is part of that crew that hangs out there, and it's a fun game. Last week was pretty rough for Jack. I admit he got targeted pretty hard, so I don't know if he'll be back. But Chris, you'll probably be there, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Always.
every Thursday on Twitch, on the main channel, youtube.com/wickedgoodeverything, and yeah, I think that's about it. Till the next power play, we will see you next time. Wicked Good Sports. This is a segment we like to call At the Buzzer. We're joined, as always, by Jack Tiernan. Jack, how you doing?
Brian, thanks, man. I'm doing well.
So let's start off. We want to talk a little bit about the Celtics first, and then we're going to transition into Steph Curry just dominating the league. But before that, what's happening with the Celtics? What's going on here?
Sure. So Celtics are at the end of their essential tirade on the East right now. They went 6-1, 7-1 for a bit, and then lost last night to the Bulls. Or we're recording on Tuesday, so lost last night on Monday to the Bulls. Pretty close game, pretty intense game. Jason Tatum had the weirdest triple-double of his career. The first one as well, but it was a good game to watch. But otherwise, Celtics are definitely trending in the right direction. It's really, really fun to watch again.
Yeah, so they're fifth right now in the East. Good spot to be at. We've been through it in our show. They were struggling to start off, but you think they're in a better place? You think
That's generous.
It's kind of like... You think they're going to start playing up to their potential here on out?
I do. I think a couple interesting transactions we can cover real quick, too. So Celtics signed Jabari Parker, who was the former number 2 overall pick in 2014, to a 2-year deal, which is sweet. I think that's a great pickup because he was unsigned for a bit, and waived Mo Wagner, who they just got in the Daniel Tice trade as part of that. Which was interesting because he was a young dude with potential. But yeah, I think going back to the initial question, right? Celtics are in a great spot. They have a pretty easy strength of schedule the remaining portion of the season, so I expect them to come out at least probably 5th seed. I think is as low as they're going to be the rest of the season. Knock on wood, but it feels like they're really coming back. Yeah.
So what do you think? Obviously, we talked last week about Jason Tatum just popping off. What do you think? Like the catalyst for this team playing better as a whole has been?
As a whole, man, I really think it's just health. I think a lot of the time, we've seen Evan Fournier for like 3-4 games at most, and now he's been out in health and safety for a bit. Tristan Thompson was out for a bit. Robert Williams has been out for now 3 games in a row. I think it's just getting guys back healthy, getting their feet under them, and as you can see with Kemba, who finally is starting to get a rhythm again. It's paying off for him. So if we get everybody back, like even 2-3 weeks before playoffs at full force, I think we're in good shape.
Absolutely. So I guess, is there anybody that you have your eye on who's becoming like a bigger contributor? You talked a little bit about Kemba kind of living up to his hype. Is there anyone else you kind of want to touch on, make people aware of to keep their eye on moving forward in this season?
Yeah, I've always said I love Jaylen Brown. He and Jason Tatum, again, fire and ice. They really are the 2 big guys up there when it comes to providing the firepower on the offense. And you've got Kemba, and then there's Marcus Smart, the heart and the soul. I think those are probably your core 4 guys, right? If Robert Williams can come back healthy, I think he's an elite playmaker on offense, and he's a solid role player on defense. I think that center position is always what's going to be important for us going forward, because if you can score in the paint, you've got a lot of teams kind of on their heels. The only concern, I guess, would be really far down the line, and I'm thinking really far ahead here with like the Lakers, for example, who've got Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Andre Drummond, who can bully the crap out of your guys in the paint. So,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's a concern. But otherwise, like I really think that the center position is going to be one to watch. I mean, Luke Cornett, man, he's shown up since we got him too. He was supposed to be cut immediately, and he's been elite.
Hey, you never know, like people have these preconceived notions about what's going to happen. But I guess as far as they're 8-2 in their last 10 games, of course, is great.
Yeah.
Do you is there any team that you can kind of pick out from the East? Nets, obviously they're up there, but any other team that you are worried about as a Celtics fan as we slowly get closer to the playoffs, getting hot, I guess, at the right time? Kind of like the Heat
that's a good point.
No pun intended, but like the Heat last year.
I mean, I think if you think about it, the Heat could be an issue too. I actually am worried about the Hornets, which is really weird.
Okay.
I never thought I'd say that last year, because who's even on the Charlotte Hornets last year? But now you've got LaMelo coming back from injury. You've got Gordon Hayward playing like what Gordon Hayward was supposed to be for Boston. It's I think they could be a real big sleeper if they make it through the play-in tournament. I think they are a team that is streaky, and if they get hot, they get hot.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sure. And like you said, even for me, I was like, oh yeah, because you said the Hornets, and my mind is the Hornets are in the West because they were the New Orleans Hornets forever.
True.
Our whole childhood was them in the West, and then it's the Bobcats are, are the Hornets again. It's a weird thing, but that's great. It's something to keep an eye on. Of course, we like Gordon Hayward. It didn't work out in Boston, but it was. There was that moment when we got Kyrie and we got Hayward where it's oh damn, we're gonna win so many championships. It's gonna be great. And then,
I know.
None. That's fine.
But yeah, right.
I think we got a good team going on now. What was that?
Me too. I was just gonna say it's kind of like those two are the Wicked Witch of the West, and then the Good Witch, right? Because Gordon Hayward, everyone's oh man, we love you so much, and then Kyrie, everybody doesn't ever want to see his face in Boston ever again,
Yeah.
So it's kind of two very different departures, I think.
Yeah, when his career starts off with a horrific injury that he tried to fight back
man.
That's something you can get behind, where it starts off very well and then goes horribly to end. That's, I think there's reasonable disdain,
different
almost,
right,
from Celtics fans. And of course, Celtics fans are not necessarily known. Boston fans in general aren't known for being too forgiving of anyone, especially if they feel crossed. But
yes.
All right, so that's what's happening with the Celtics. We're looking forward to it. Like I said, they're 8-2 in the last 10. Things are seemingly looking up. But from a team that's been hot to a player who's just been straight up on fire. This was those old NBA Jam. He'd be flaming, just unstoppable, hitting every shot. I said, let me pull it up because I think it was, I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, his last 10 games, Steph Curry. What is happening here? He's averaging 31 points a game in his last 10 games.
I don't know of any player that's done that ever, aside from Wilt Chamberlain, right? That is absolutely, in this era of basketball, that is absolutely insane. That is unprecedented. We will probably never see it again.
No.
The only guy that I would say would ever do that is James Harden on the Rockets, but now James Harden isn't on the Rockets. So it's it is Steph's show, man.
Yeah, so I mean the Warriors, they're 29-29, so they're not we're used to lately anyways, the Warriors being the cream of the crop, way up there.
Right.
They've of course lost tons of players over the last few years. They're not the same, but Steph Curry does not seem to be slowing down, and I mean, he's 50% from 3-point. We know he's a gifted shooter, but that's so ridiculous.
Over
half
that
the
span?
time. Yeah, over that span, he's 50%.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, what has been happening, Jack? How has he stepped up? What's been facilitating his rise to just being an unstoppable person, other than he's Steph Curry? Yeah.
Other than being Steph Curry, yeah, right. So, I mean, there are a lot of guys where you can go in and say, for example, if Kemba's hot, right? You could say, Kemba just had a bunch of good matchups. He had some poor defensive point guards, and he was able to shoot the lights out over him. Steph has played against dudes who are elite, and he goes up against dudes that are elite, and it doesn't matter, man.
Mm-hmm.
He is unconscious right now shooting the ball. Like, he could pull up from half court and drain a three. I turned the game on last night, man, and he just out of curiosity, because I knew, everyone knows what he's doing who follows the NBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like, literally would just take two to go and pull up, fall, like all net. It was insane. And it's just happened that way for the last 10 games. I really think it comes down to the facilitation of the offense, though. I think Steve Kerr is just kind of letting their ball run through Steph. Steve Kerr is getting his usage up, right? Steve is just like letting the offense run through Steph, whereas he was trying to get other guys involved before, like some of the big guys, trying to get James Wiseman involved because he was the second overall pick, right? So you're trying to get everybody involved, and then there gets to a point where it's like, just give the ball to Steph, man. He's going to shoot the lights out anyway. But recently it's been historic.
Yeah. No doubt. And I think it's so interesting with basketball where really one player can just take over the game, and he's doing it for a prolonged stretch. I mean, the Warriors need it right now. Like we said, they're 29 and 29. Should have pulled up the Western Conference standings. Idiot.
They're pretty far down there, I'll tell you that. They're probably like hovering around like 11 to 8 at best, I would guess.
Yeah, so they are the 9th team. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
We'll see, I guess. I mean, so yeah, they're 9th, as we said. They're not in a great position. Do you think Steph can continue this production and lead the Warriors into the playoffs? Again, it feels so weird to be talking about the Warriors being like mediocre to bad. But
I know.
Here we are.
Especially at the beginning of the season, like they were a joke, like you watched them go up against the Lakers and they were down like 50 at one point or something stupid like that. So now I know it's painful, because the Warriors of like 5 years ago would like cringe at that.
Right.
But now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Steph is prolific. I think, and I'm second guessing myself as we're saying this, just because I really don't know if he can be stopped. I think he is an elite shooter. I mean, it really feels like he's on something that you are going to have to essentially like hurt him to stop him, which obviously we don't condone. Don't get me wrong.
No, of course
but, like
not.
he's absolutely crushing it right now, and if he can keep this mentality, whatever he's doing up, that'd be insane. But at the same time, I don't think 50% from three is sustainable. I don't think
probably not.
I don't think even 40 points a game is sustainable long term. Because they're even though they are a bunch of scrubs that are alive on the Warriors right now, the Warriors rather.
Right. Might as well be a bunch of lawyers.
At this point, it's probably similar career progression for a lot of these dudes. But no, I don't know, man. It seems like this is going to die out eventually, and the Warriors are going to go back to being out of the playoffs or fighting for a play-in game.
Yeah, I mean we'll definitely be watching it as it happens, but for now we're just enjoying the show and
enjoy the ride. Yeah,
all the memes and fun stuff like on Twitter, and hey, we'll see what happens. But other than that, hey Jack, thank you so much for coming on. Of course, if you like Jack, where can they find you online?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, man, I appreciate going on all the time. So you got me on Twitter, and that's Jack_Tiernan. All my Celtics takes and general NBA takes are probably on there, whether you like them or not.
It's a great follow, so I definitely heavily suggest it. Of course, if you, I guess, like the sound of Jack's voice, well, I don't know. Hopefully, Jack will come back and play Among Us this week. like last week was a tough week.
We'll see, man.
I
don't know, man.
Among Us was a little rough. If anyone watched that for Jack, very unfairly, I guess, targeted. Yeah. They were doing what people have to do to Steph Curry to stop him to Jack. That's really it.
Leave is what, or that, right? Exactly.
They're like, we gotta take Jack out earlier. It's not gonna be good for us. And so usually Jack is on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/wicked everything playing Among Us every Thursday. So yeah, if you like the sound of Jack's voice, you can hear him more there. And of course, you can follow the channel on Twitter at WGEverything, on Instagram at WickedGoodEverything. And the main channel is youtube.com/WickedGoodEverything. I'm Brian, fake BMR. It's probably right there unless I somehow got tremendously more lazy in the next hour before I edit this, but hopefully not. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the show. That is it. Like I said, we covered just a range of topics, and it was very exciting to do. So, until next time, thank you so much for checking out Wicked Good Sports on podcast services, on YouTube. Search Wicked Good Sports. Search our main channel, youtube.com/WickedGoodEverything. We're on Twitch at twitch.tv/WickedGoodEverything. We're on Instagram at WickedGoodEverything, on Twitter at WGEverything, and on TikTok, search Wicked Good Everything. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.